Thanks for watching Littleton Common. And now here's Barbara McRae and Mark Crory. Welcome. Well, June is here and it's time for school graduations and also for June brides.
You know, Mark, I've always wondered why June is for weddings. And I read that June is named after the Roman goddess Juno, who was associated with love and marriage and childbearing. So marrying in June was believed to bring love, happiness, and good luck. What month were you married?
August.
Oh.
So much for that.
You're okay.
Okay, good.
You know, we chose, well, we had to have November because that's when Alan graduated from Officers Candidate School and had a couple of weeks before we had to report to his first assignment at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Wow. And how long was he in the service, the Army?
29 years.
Wow. And you traveled quite a bit. You were in Missouri, you were in Italy, you were in
Colorado, North Carolina, Georgia.
Littleton.
And Littleton, or Fort Devens, actually. And it was funny because when we were getting married, Alan said, when he asked me, he also said, you do realize you're marrying the Army, the military. And I said, oh, how many? Sounded okay,
That's
really.
right. Hey, if this doesn't work out between us.
There were plenty to choose from.
Oh, that's great. Well,
anyway, these people, time to start new dreams for their future. So here's to our graduates and newly married couples.
Right. Well, LCTV had a very busy May, covering annual town meetings in both Littleton and Boxborough, plus Littleton High School's commencement ceremony, the Senior Awards Night, National Honor Society induction ceremony. And in addition, we covered both the high school and the middle school spring band concerts and Memorial Day, and whew, we're exhausted. Anyway, some big news. We'll be holding a free video production workshop in July. It's on July 17th and 24th. Those are Wednesdays. Sign up in June this month to reserve your spot. You can call 978-540-2488. And we always look forward to the workshops. They're free, have a great time, and usually we get, 6 or 7 people to take a workshop, and sometimes people take it just to learn a new skill.
Yeah.
Sometimes people take it because it's a fun family thing to do, like a father and a son, or a mother and a daughter, or whatever combination will come and take the class. And other times people have a program in mind that they'd like to see produced on. And what better way to do it here on LCTV? We teach you how to use all the equipment, and then you can produce a show of your own that airs not only on cable television, but YouTube and our on-demand channel.
Yeah. So. I started because a friend, Carolyn Harlow, said, Barbara, you like faces, because I painted faces. And she said, you ought to take the videography, class. And so I did, and I convinced Alan to do it too.
Right.
And that was 100 years ago.
It was 100 years ago. Well, somewhere floating around our archives is the very first piece that you ever did. It was I think you covered the Rotary race, the Apple Very Fine race that we used to have in town. And you were out reporting, and asking the runners.
That was a class project.
Part of your graduation to
we all had to pick a spot we could do, and the class said I should do the interviews.
Right, that's
great. So that's how that started.
That's awesome.
That's because I like
We don't require graduation videos for people to get certified, but I will throw out there that we do have opportunities for people who are interested in earning money on the side. We do have what we call video vendors, and once you've taken the workshop, and there's additional training that goes on, but you can be someone who covers one of the government meetings in town or some event that we need help, and we pay people to do that. So that's a good job for anyone looking to earn a few extra bucks.
Well, that reminds me, because I need a raise.
Anyone else who's looking to earn a few bucks? I'm sorry, you're stuck in the freebie category.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
At least you could bring me donuts or something.
Right. Well, you can live out your dreams here at LCTV.
Yeah, well, speaking of dreams, the Shattuck Street building is moving right along. And, any ideas that, when they'll be finished? Do you think you know when they'll be finished?
Well, I've heard it was 18 months once they started. The groundbreaking and the construction started in March. So that's 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So somewhere around August of next year, maybe July, August. That's what they're hoping for.
Yeah, well,
Hey,
I'm
listen.
looking forward to what kind of programs the new center will offer our
For sure.
seniors.
Yeah. Well, we've waited a long time, so this will be great. Yeah. All right. Well, now let's see what the library is up to this month with Library Director Sam Alvarez. Sam?
Thanks, Mark. And here's a sampling of what's coming up at the Reuben Horror Library. Medicare Supplement Plus plans, or Medicare Advantage plans, which coverage is best for me. For those new to Medicare, this is the number one question most people have when seeking additional insurance. However, even if you're already on a plan, it's always a good idea to reevaluate your choices each year. Circumstances change, and so can your health plan. Join us for an informational program on Saturday, June 8th at 11 a.m. in the Sturts Room to discuss this upcoming program. Join us for a new book club in collaboration with Dirigible Brewing Company. Pick up the book at the library and then meet fellow readers at Dirigible to discuss the book. First meeting takes place on Wednesday, June 12th at 7 at Dirigible in Littleton. The first book is Tinkers by Paul Harding. The Thoreau Society will hold a civil rights and civil disobedience talk on Thursday, June 20th at 6:30. A thought-provoking exploration of Thoreau's participation in the Underground Railroad, his abolitionist views, night in jail, and how his writings have historically inspired civil rights movements around the world. Adult Board Game Night will take place on Thursday, June 27th at 6 p.m. We will provide different board games each month and welcome gamers of all levels. Feel free to bring in your favorite game to teach as well. You can join local author and travel channel's Ronnie LeBlanc of the hit reality Warner Brothers Discovery television series Expedition Bigfoot and Paranormal Caught on Camera for a presentation on Bigfoot in Massachusetts. Ronnie will be here on Thursday, June 27th at 6:30 in the Sturts Room for this fascinating presentation. Parents, don't forget summer reading registration begins on the 10th with lots of fun summer programs for kids and teens. Don't forget to check the library calendar at littletonlibrary.org for more information. Thank you.
Garden Club held its annual end-of-season luncheon at the Bull Run. New board members were elected, ready to put the 24-25-year programs together are President Lynn Warren, this is her second time. She did it years ago, not,
Do they have term limits?
Yeah. And a vice president is Susie Glein, secretary Heidi Madison, and treasurer Leslie Shaw. And Garden Club member Chris McCumber heads the intergenerational program. And last month, students made fairy gardens. And thanks to Dave Plogger for making all the fairy houses that look like mushrooms.
Cute.
And they were all a work of art. And here is one of my gardening skills, my wisteria. Although
beautiful.
It doesn't really need any encouragement. Wisteria will do what it wants, but it still looks beautiful.
It does. Nice job. Well, we mentioned hidden treasures in Littleton on last month's show, and we talked about the Kaliva Club's monthly breakfast. Well, this month it's walking trails, and there are many. Littleton has over 20 properties to explore, and here are some. Cloverdale's Longboard, the walk through the marsh, you've probably been there, through the marsh in the woods. Hartwell's Crossing at Beaver Brook, Long Lake Park's Beaver Dam, views from the top of Oak Hill and Newtown Hill and Prouty Woods and many, many more. So if you want information about that, go to Littleton Conservation Trust's webpage at the address you see on the screen. And if you want to know even more about various trails in town, go to LCTV's YouTube channel And check out the series called Your Backyard. Bill Vales and I did a series of programs on locations in town and many of the trails that we just mentioned. Bill gives a ton of information about what you'll see and what you should look for while you're on the trail. So check that series out, Your Backyard.
Yeah, great. It's good exercise and good views.
Yeah.
So, will you be listening to music while walking, or maybe just the sounds around you?
Well, I like to hear nature in all its glory. The only time I listen to music when I'm outside is when I'm mowing my lawn. And not only does it make me feel good, but it also protects my ears from the loud, noisy mower. Speaking of ears, our local audiologist, Megan Ford, is here to talk about tinnitus. Now, you heard me right, not tinnitus, but tinnitus. So thanks for joining us, Megan.
Thanks, Mark. It's great to be back, and it's always a pleasure to be here. Today, I'd like to talk about tinnitus. Is that how you say it? Everybody always asks me that whenever I ask if they have ringing noises, buzzing, and any kind of whooshing sound. We call it tinnitus. Sometimes people think it should be called tinnitus, but if you think about something like laryngitis or tonsillitis, that usually indicates an infection, and that's not what tinnitus is. We don't really know what causes tinnitus, and there's no known cure, but there is some theory as to where it's generated and why we get it, and there are some treatment options, which I'm going to talk about today. So it does correlate with untreated hearing loss and loud noise exposure, but you can also have tinnitus with high levels of stress, or if you've had a lot of salt in your diet recently. We have also seen an increase in people that report tinnitus, and also certain medications can cause tinnitus, as well as quinine. So if you don't have any medications that are causing tinnitus and you start to experience any ringing noises, buzzing, hissing, you should probably get it checked out and get a hearing test. If you work around a lot of loud noise, sometimes the tinnitus is an indication that you've been around too much noise and that you should probably wear hearing protection or decrease the amount of time that you're around loud noise. And if you don't know if you have hearing loss or not, get it checked out, because one of the treatments for tinnitus is actually treating it with hearing aids or amplification. So if you experience a lot of ringing and it's bothersome, that can be the brain filling in the gaps for sounds that it is expecting to hear along the neural pathway. Inside the inner ear, the cochlea, there are little hair cells, and sometimes those hair cells will die off for various reasons. And then we start to experience hearing loss, and sometimes it's in certain frequencies and pitch, sometimes it's the high pitches, and that pathway to the brain, the auditory cortex, is no longer working. And we theorize that the brain starts to generate this sound that it's expecting to hear, and when it doesn't hear it, it makes that sound, and it's something that's happening inside of our heads, not happening in the environment. And that can sometimes be reduced when you start wearing hearing aids. I would say in my practice, about 80% of the people that are very bothered by tinnitus, when they start using hearing aids, they come back and tell me that they don't even notice the tinnitus anymore. It might still be there, but it's more in the background. And while they're wearing the hearing aids, they don't hear it at all. A lot of times people will say they hear the tinnitus mostly at nighttime when everything else is quiet. And that's because we live in a very loud environment, and there's a lot of sounds happening around that are masking the tinnitus. But when all goes quiet, when you turn everything off at the end of the day and you're laying in bed trying to fall asleep, now you hear nothing but that tinnitus. So it's kind of like if I was in a brightly lit room and I had a candle on the table. We may not notice that candle, but if I turned the lights down in that room, all you would notice is that candle. So wearing hearing aids is kind of like turning the lights back on. The tinnitus might still be there, but it's kind of in the background and it's not as bothersome. There's also something called pulsatile tinnitus, which is when you hear your heartbeat in your ear. And that's because there's an artery that passes through the middle ear near the eardrum. And sometimes people will experience pulsatile tinnitus when they have changes in their cardiovascular system, or hormonal changes, but very rarely it can be caused by a tumor called a glomus tumor. So it's important, if you do hear your heartbeat in your ear, to get that checked out as well. Start with a hearing test, go see an audiologist, and then maybe an ear, nose, and throat doctor, and get that checked out as well. It is more common if you have the pulsatile tinnitus to have it just on one side, and typically it's the right side. I have experienced it myself, and it is on my right side, and usually when I ask people which side it's on, they will say it's the right side as well. And an ear, nose, and throat doctor explained to me that there is a difference in the size of the artery, and it is larger on the right side, and that might explain why. But if you have regular tinnitus, like the ringing noises, buzzing, hissing sounds, in just one ear and not both or somewhere in your head, it is important to get that checked out, because we expect the ears to do the same thing. If one ear is doing something different than the other, we want to know why. There must be some underlying medical condition that might explain it, and it's important to get it checked out with a professional. So let's say you have tinnitus. What do you do about it? What can you do to relieve some of those symptoms? Well, some people have found that masking noise can help to lower the tinnitus. So if you put on like a white noise generator or some static sound in the background in between radio stations, that can calm the tinnitus down. But what can be frustrating is that you're replacing one annoying sound with another annoying sound. And nowadays, some hearing aids actually have these noise generators built in. There was a large study through the VA that found that people that suffer tinnitus get relief from an ocean sound, which is kind of like the ebb and flow of a white noise, and it kind of comes and goes, and that is actually very soothing and can calm that tinnitus down. It somehow stimulates the neural pathway to the brain. So some of the newer hearing aids have that technology built in, and you can set it at whatever level is most comfortable for you, and you can have it play in the background softly throughout the day, and many people report that that does help. There's also tinnitus retraining therapy treatments available, which is kind of like retraining your brain to get your mind off of it and focus on something else. That can be helpful for many people, but sometimes it's also frustrating. The other thing that I want to mention is if you ever get an advertisement for supplements that say that it'll cure your tinnitus, stay away. There's nothing that's been FDA approved that actually will, and that's been proven in science or scientific research that you can orally take a medication or a supplement that's going to help it. If anything, if you want to be natural, try to reduce the salt in your diet, reduce the stress and neck and muscle and jaw tension, get your hearing checked out. And I do want to mention one last thing. There is a product called the Linear, which is under clinical trials right now, and it is proving to be somewhat helpful. And it's a very interesting technology that produces a sound and a vibration on the tongue. And so you would bite down or put something on your tongue, and you spend some time with this vibration, and for whatever reason, it seems to be working. So that's probably going to be up and coming in the future to help people that suffer from tinnitus. Also, lastly, you can always go to the American Tinnitus Association website, and they do offer support systems through that as well. But I think you can also talk to your local audiologist. Just make sure it's a licensed audiologist. And if you have any questions or want to ask me any questions that you'd like me to talk about in future topics, you can always email me at hearsmartaud@gmail.com. That's hearsmart@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan. Our special guest this month, well, Megan was a special guest and Sam was a special guest, but our really special guest is my friend and high school classmate, Carolyn Mueller. Carolyn and I sat down to talk about Littleton history, and I think you'll enjoy this. As promised, Carolyn Mueller is here with me. Carolyn, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for the invite.
Yeah, and Carolyn is the curator of the Littleton Historical Society, and that includes the museum, I guess you'd call it, or what do you call that building?
Yeah, we call it the museum,
museum.
Historical Society building, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a museum.
So as curator, what are some of your duties that you do?
Well, I mean, we're all volunteer, so we all kind of pitch in, but technically the curator looks over the collection, make sure everything is accession. We try to, catalog everything, but everybody does it too, so it's just one of those.
So when you, how do you get your stuff? Like someone, I hate to say it, but someone may pass away and they go through grandma's stuff in the attic and...
We get a lot of that, especially now there's a lot of families cleaning out, people downsizing. And
Right.
they have this stuff they don't want to throw away, and luckily they think about us sometimes.
Yeah.
And we get it that way. And we also buy stuff on eBay. Well, I always have my eye out on eBay and local, flea markets and things. You never know what you'll find.
And Littleton related stuff on eBay too, right?
Yes, yeah.
Huh. Because like people move away and then they had a bunch of Del Dale milk bottles or something.
Right,
in there.
that's it. Or sometimes, and it's weird, like things will come from Washington State, and you wonder how something gets out there. But a lot of times it's estate cleanouts. People will go into someone's house who's downsizing and just take everything, and then they kind of look through what they have, and they'll put it out there. So I think it's a lot of that. But people move all over the country,
Right.
and then they say, well, I don't belong to Littleton anymore, and they'll sell their treasures.
Interesting. Behind my house growing up, I grew up on King Street. My woods is now, part of it is the high school.
Oh, right.
Where the high school is now. They've, made it into a high school. But, playing in the woods and making trails and everything growing up, we used to come across a lot of dumps, I guess you call it. People would
probably.
just throw their garbage out in the woods and bury it.
That's right.
And so, you'd find it with a metal detector or whatever, and you'd dig up old bottles. And one of the big things was, remember those glass, they shaped like bells, and they used to go on telephone poles?
The transformers.
Yeah, found a ton of those.
Yeah.
So you never know what's buried out in the woods these days.
No, you don't, and it keeps churning up. With Frosty, I mean, we're always digging up little shards in our garden of someone's pottery that, like you said, got tossed out the window when it was all
Right.
gone.
And years from now, someone's going to find my G.I. Joes someplace out there. I think.
Right, and make a mint off them. Probably.
Absolutely, they've still have the beard, like bearded guy. So today we're going to talk about something a little different that you did, which Littleton Postcards Through the Ages, and you recently did a presentation at Town Hall. And tell us about what that was all about.
Sure, that was for Council on Aging, something we'd been talking about doing forever, doing it during the day. And seniors, our meetings are in the evenings, so it's hard sometimes to get out there. And Nicole Cervella, who has now moved on to Groton, I think the day she started here, we've been trying to get together and do something. And then, work schedules and pandemics and all kinds of things got in the way. So, and I wanted to do something general, especially for the first, we hope to do these again. So you have to have a theme when you do a talk. So I thought, well, if the theme is postcards, you can do a variety of topics. And Nancy Bradbury had done one like 25 years ago, but our collection has grown, so it was kind of nice to revisit it.
I think we might have that on tape too.
I think you do,
Yeah.
like a VHS
It was a
tape.
VHS, but it's up on our YouTube channel now. You can check it out because we had a project where we transferred all our old
Right.
shows on to digital and on YouTube. But so we have here in our hands the copy of the different postcards, and I notice most of these are online on the Historical Society's website.
Yeah, quite a few of them are. Most of them are the usual buildings that we all know.
Right. Now, this is kind of interesting because actually all of these were postcards, I assume.
Yes.
Or the vast majority.
Yep, they were all scanned from postcards.
Now, I guess, was Littleton a destination that people felt like they needed to send postcards from, or was that a thing back then?
It was a thing. I mean, postcard collecting is on the wane now. I blame the digital age. In the old days, people had postcard albums and they collected postcards. Some of them you'll notice are like real photographs of,
Yes.
of things. And in the the early 1900s, people would have their little brownie cameras, and they could go out and take a photo of their house and put it on a postcard.
Wow.
Which is really cool now because we have photos of things that you don't need to be a destination for.
Right.
But it's the schools and the depot buildings that
Right.
everybody has. But
Yeah.
little general store in town, they would have postcards for sale.
And as much as people want to watch us for this whole interview, let's show some of these pictures and talk about them, okay?
Yes.
Starting right off here with the Shattuck Street building, you see that the first postcard here is when it was just a single building.
Right.
And that was, what year was that?
That was built in 1922. So that's the wing that was closest to what used to be the tennis courts.
Oh,
to
okay.
Tennis, and
So
if
that's
you
where
look
the school
outside and you
department
look
is.
up, you'll see 1922
Oh.
in the building. And yep, school department and
Yep.
COA is
And
there.
then, and the gym was not part of that, right?
No, 1938, they needed to add on, so they added on the gym, which is where we're sitting now.
And that would be the next
classes. That's
postcard.
the next postcard.
Okay.
Yep, so you can see the gym, and then I think it was 8 classrooms.
Wow. Now, then the final one, I guess, down below is kind of what it looks like today.
Yes.
With the expansion of the what used to be the library.
Right. And that was in 1952. After World War II, our population started booming, which more kids, you know, the soldiers started settling here, so they needed more classrooms. So they put on, I think it was 8 classrooms.
1952?
2, yeah.
Now, was that the only school in town at that time?
At that time, in 1938, when they built the middle section, there was one small school, which was just to the left of the building, and that was torn down in 38. So this was the school for the entire town.
Wow. And that building that you're referring to, I think, is where they're putting the Hagar homestead?
It's actually where the library parking used to be, where the car chargers are.
Yes, right.
It was
now.
right. That
Interesting.
Was
So
right
it's up on the hill a little bit. Okay. Well, that's great. Moving on to, you and I both went to this school, but at that time, they had built Shattuck Street.
Yep.
They had built, I'm not Shattuck Street, Shaker Lane.
Yep.
And the high school was where the middle school was.
Right. I know it. Yes.
But, and then there was a Russell Street
and
at
the
the time.
Russell School, which was the middle school when we were
That's
there.
right, it was the middle school. So I came 4th and 5th grade here. How about you?
That's same. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on. And I guess there is a picture of the other school that we can see.
Yeah, it was called the Union School, and that was
it was a nice looking school, a little steeple on the top and everything.
it was added on to a couple times, but I guess it was in bad disrepair, and that was one of the reasons. And again, the population was growing, and they wanted to have high school classes. Before that, they didn't have high school, so there was going to be more classes, and that's why they had to build Shattuck Street.
I love pictures like this. This is a view of King Street towards Littleton Center, I guess.
Yeah,
it says the Kimball House is on the right. Which is the Kimball House?
That's what we call the Hager Homestead.
Oh,
now.
okay,
yeah, It was
gotcha.
originally the Kimball House, but yeah.
Now, we think we're a tree city now, but look at what,
I know it. Every street, when we see the old postcards, it's just tree lined.
It's
just
beautiful.
So pretty, yeah.
Do you have any postcards of the old American chestnuts that used to be, or was that kind of pre-postcard?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know my trees very well, and unless it's labeled, I might not know.
Well, they're extinct now. We did a show on it. It's the only reason why I think I'm somewhat of an expert. But they're called the sequoias of the East, or they were, because they're huge, just like the sequoias are out the West. But there was a blight that wiped them all out, and now there are no more American chestnuts. So they're trying to get them back with crossbreeding. But haven't been too successful.
Elm trees were the same. We have a couple postcards with some beautiful big old elm trees, which are have the same issues.
Interesting. Okay. Looking again, we got some more views of, this was going up towards the Congregational Church?
Unitarian, you're kind of standing right in front of the Congregational Church. So that's the Unitarian Church and the library in the corner, and that's the houses along the left.
And what year would that have been taken?
That would have been turn of the century, probably late 1800s, early 1900s.
Wow. Dirt road.
Nice dirt road.
Obviously.
Yep.
I mean, cars weren't even around, so these were horses.
Horse and buggies.
Yeah. Wow. And I love the Houghton building, the next one, because that's still standing, and it's pretty much looks the same.
Looks the same, yeah.
You
And
know?
this must be an early one, because if you look the landscaping, there's hardly anything. There's no trees. So it was built in 1895. So I'm guessing that this picture was taken in the next 5, 6, 7 years after that.
And then the next one is, did they just colorize that?
Well, that's the fun one, and that's one of the reasons I put that in, because we all know it's a yellow or tan brick building. This postcard was printed in Germany. So what they would do is they take a photograph, send it over to Germany to be colorized. And you have, some Fräuleins there, and she says, "Oh, a brick building." So she picks up her red paint and colors it. And I can only imagine when it came back here and they opened the box all excited
Right.
and they've got a red brick building, but.
What building is that? Where's
What building
that?
is that? Yeah.
That's funny. That kind of reminds me of I don't know if it's a rumor or if this is a true story, but supposedly the town, Littleton, they shipped this bell and it was supposed to come to Littleton, Massachusetts, but it went to Littleton, New Hampshire because they spelt it wrong or something.
Yeah.
Is that just like
Yeah,
folklore?
that
or?
may be folklore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're
Oh.
still trying to pinpoint that one, but
It's a good story
it's a great
anyway.
story,
Yeah. And then let's see. Let's move on to. Why don't you pick out one? We'll talk about.
Well, maybe the old town hall,
Hmm.
the one down in the corner. That's a really neat. It's such a cool building, and
was.
that was the first town hall. It was built in 1887, and it was also the home of the library. When the library was first created and organized, it was in the bell tower.
Interesting.
And
Did it have a name?
they just called it the town hall.
And the town library.
And
They
the,
didn't-
the library was the Reuben Hoare Library. When that was organized, William Stevens Houghton, who gave money to create the library, wanted it named for Reuben Hoare, who had helped his parents when they were in dire
Wow.
need.
That's
So it was,
interesting. And of course, this burnt down, I guess, in what,
1943.
Wow.
Yeah, there was an electrical fire. Sadly,
Yeah.
and we have no photos of the inside. There's one thing I covered is an interior photo. We have one of the basement, I think it is, where there's a big auditorium, and they had a beautiful garden club, had a beautiful flower show in there, and we have a picture of that, but nothing of the offices or the library.
Interesting. I wonder if, I thought that one of my relatives, was there a banquet hall or something?
They used to have town dinners. They would have dinners there. And,
I think that I thought I remember seeing a picture of them, their reception being at one of inside. So
look
I
for
will definitely
that.
look for that.
That's how we get
That's
our
a gem. How much do you guys pay for fines like that?
submit a bill.
Okay, all right, I'll submit it. We'll see how far that goes. All right, moving on. We just have a few more minutes, but I want to just highlight on the bottom right. You see the Wayside Grill. That was still standing as I remember. Not quite looking like that, but there was something there growing up. I remember going there for ice cream and things. They had a walk-up window.
Yeah, world famous clams was what the clams in their ice cream. I guess they were known for.
Okay, I didn't know about the clams. I probably wouldn't have liked that.
Yeah, not when you're a kid.
No, grilled cheese, I like
Yeah.
that, but
And that's now where the Littleton Animal Hospital is.
that's right, the veterinarian place. So that's, I mean, you look at these pictures. That I encourage anybody to go online. You can look. Somebody did a great job. Was it Andrea Curran or
Andrew Kern and Andrew Bowers did the then
now and then? Yeah. Where you can see the old picture, the old postcard, and then they kind of recreated from the angle and as best they could today, and it's fascinating to see
Yeah.
Littleton, the changes over the years. On the next slide, we have the depot area, which is such a beautiful building. It's still standing. Be great if someday that was restored into its, something.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah,
it's great. Dave Erickson does wonderful
Yeah,
things
yeah.
there with his stove business, and he's been very generous to,
He
the
does a
clock
lot.
down in the
Yeah.
Littleton Common. He restored and
Yeah.
put that up, and some of the troughs
The
around
troughs,
town.
yeah. No, he does good.
But if he decides to retire and wants to do something with that building, that would be something to have a
It would be
restaurant
fun.
there. or-
Yes, and that's what everyone would love. A little coffee shop. It would be great.
right.
Someday.
I can imagine the train going by when you're trying to drink your coffee.
I know that's probably what'll happen too, because it's real close to the tracks.
Yeah, and it goes fast. It doesn't
Yeah, it
stop.
doesn't
It's just
stop there
right
anymore.
by. Then a couple down from that, we see, is that Johnson's store?
That's what we remember as Johnson's store. It's now CK Bikes for the newcomers.
Right.
But it was built in 1907, I think it was, as a general store, and was up until the Johnsons.
Johnson's General.
Retired.
Yeah. It's interesting how it's kind of kept that. Well, now it looks a lot different, but I can remember the porch and the steps going up
Yeah.
into the floor was very wooden and creaky.
Yes,
and
yeah.
But they had candy bars there, so that's
that's what's all-
that
that's all
sold
you
me.
cared, yeah.
You had me at candy. The next page, we've got Littleton was a destination for city folk. to come out.
Yep.
Long Lake, of course.
Yep, that was the big one.
Were all little cottages that people would come for summer
Right.
and spend the time in the lake. And believe it or not, Mill Pond was a place where people swam at one time.
Yes, yeah, they called it Lake Warren to advertise. You're not going to want to swim in the mill pond.
That's true.
Yeah, Curtis actually was his father, Arthur Drew, owned at the end of like where the mill is, and then up and over to Harwood Avenue, and he had all these little camps.
Wow. And of course, this was before 495, so Mill
Right.
Road went right all the
Yeah.
way from the mill to.
Yeah, and you could walk across, and the beach was over there.
Right. I mean, my mom was a lifeguard there growing up, so back in would have been in the 50s or late 40s. So they had a dock out there, they had a
Yeah.
beach, and by the time I came around in the 60s, it was just leeches, and no one
Right,
ever
yeah,
would
and
go
so-
in there,
No, it wouldn't today. And you don't even really, if you go down there, you can't even really find where the beach is now.
Right.
I mean, I don't remember a beach down there at all. 'Cause
Correct.
we were
With the little fishing spots,
yeah.
but yeah.
The locals.
Yeah, I could tell you if you don't know where it is. I could tell you where it was,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's no sign of it. And then there was some talk about they were going to clean that up. I hope that maybe someday they might drain it and
Yeah,
do
hopefully.
something.
I think the Clean Lakes Committee is looking into seeing what they can do with it.
Good, because they certainly stopped. I think, the pollution that used to come into there, which pretty much destroyed
It,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I guess there's still some cleanup to do, and there was a big project, and I think that's kind of fallen through, but, it's on everyone's mind, definitely.
All right. Well, let's, down here on the bottom, the lake house, I guess it was called,
yes.
the Long Lake Clubhouse. Many people still remember that, old timers,
Yeah, right.
like us, but even more old timer than
more,
us. That was quite the place. They had dances and all sorts. I mean, it was kind of set up for the summer
The summer folk, yeah.
rent, summer cottages
Yes.
people, but
Yeah, on Long Lake, it was at the corner of Cedar and Emerson. There's still a rock there. It's kind of covered with brush, but you can see the rock in this photo.
oh, interesting.
And that's still there. Of course, the clubhouse that came down in the 60s, I think, it was in disrepair, and then, they had some storm damage, and it was a safety issue, so the town tore it down.
Okay.
But yeah, it was the happening place in the
Yeah.
30s.
The
and
other thing
40s.
about looking at some of these postcards is that you can, the how far you could see. My mom used to tell stories when she was a girl. They lived above Johnson's store for a little bit.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There was an apartment there, and that was the first place they lived when they moved into town. And you could see cattle grazing on Oak Hill.
Wow.
Because there was no trees.
Right.
And I just said, that's amazing. But if you go there now, the Stagecoach Rock
Right,
that
yep.
you can look
Yes.
at on Oak Hill, you can imagine that, if there was a road going through there, it must have been pretty open.
Pretty open.
So,
Yeah, there's a lot of photos that we have that overlook, and you know where
Prouty
they are
Woods,
now,
that
Prouty
one.
Woods, and there's some up like on Tahadawin Road, and that's where I live now, and it's even hard to picture what they're looking at.
right, because it's so barren.
Yeah, but
Oh,
it's pretty cool.
that's interesting. I don't know did people just clear cut when they came here, or was it just?
Farmers, they needed the land,
Right.
and then after a while it just gets reforested.
Right.
Anything else?
That's kind of amazing too when you're walking through the woods and you come across old stone walls and stuff. It's like,
right.
who put these things
Put
out
these
here?
in the woods, but
yeah,
they
they're in the
weren't.
woods
Yeah.
now, but they were out in
Right,
the field
yeah,
before, and it's
right.
kind of amazing.
Yep.
And some of these pictures kind of capture that feeling. And then you have quite a few, like you said, of people just taking pictures of their homes, I guess.
Right,
But
and
fantastic Victorians and
Yeah.
other style old colonials, and I recognize some of our classmates who grew up in some of these houses,
Right.
and of course the penny candy store, which everybody loved, and then you've got pictures of the industrial kind of revolution that
Yeah.
came into town with the
Yeah,
common.
The common, yeah. We were a farming community,
Mm-hmm.
but we did have the Conan Houghton and United Elastic elastic webbing factory at the common. That was really our nod to the Industrial Revolution, because that's
True,
not what we
but
were.
that was pretty popular, I guess. It did business all over the world, right?
Yes.
Was it a wartime
Yeah, well, they started in the late 1800s with suspenders, and then they moved into elastic webbing, and then when World War I came along, they were making, for gas masks, they were making the webbing for that. And once World War II came along, they were already United Elastic, and they were, it was a big, well-run operation. So they were able to, move right into World War II and won a lot of awards for what they did.
Now, do you think that a lot of people in Littleton, that was their employment? Like they worked at the mill or the elastic?
A lot of people. In Adams Street, those houses were built for workers.
Oh, interesting.
Right after World War I, they were having trouble finding people, just kind of like today. So they built a lot of homes for people that could stay here because there wasn't transportation.
Right.
It was hard to come from Westford to come
That's
to
true.
Littleton.
There was what was then Route 2, I guess, but now it's 2A, or 119. That was kind of, or in 2A. That was the east to west route, right?
Yes.
From Boston all the way out to UMass or beyond.
But when you're in a little Model T car chugging
Yeah,
down,
no, that's true.
It took
That's
a long
true.
time to get there.
Yeah, it's fascinating though. You see the old cars in these photos. You see, just some of the great things. And can people go and at the Historical Society? Do you rotate your exhibits?
We do. We try to have, we have a big exhibit room. We try to have 2 or 3 exhibits a year. We're just now setting up for the Advanced Placement U.S. History class. They do a semester-long project, and so they're just putting in an exhibit. Actually, June 8th, I think it's going to open.
Great.
So it's great to come down and support the kids.
And what is the exhibit on?
Each one of them had to pick something in history, an event, and then they have to relate it to Littleton. So we have, suffragettes. I don't think they did suffrage this time, but there's one girl doing the quarantine station, which is kind of a little known thing in Littleton. So she had to see how, nationwide they had to quarantine cattle and all, and then relate it back to Littleton.
Was that off of Russell Street? Or
Harwood Avenue. The big red barn you see at the corner of Harwood Avenue and Stony Stream is part of the old quarantine station.
Yeah, is it
We're gathering information on
the
that.
Stenstrom's area there?
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Wow. Well, lots of stuff to talk about. I hope maybe we can come back and talk about some other things because I think it's good to keep history alive for the generations to come and for those of us who remember some of these things in Littleton. And
Absolutely.
I know we like to talk about our small town here, and it is growing, but there's still, I think it's fun to look back.
Yeah, and some of our history seems hidden. You go to Harvard Center, it kind of smacks you in the face, but here we kind of have to look for it a little more. So
True.
We like to let people know what to look for.
Right, absolutely. That's a great way to put it because you drive by these places every day, and you might miss the plaque in front, but we've got some old buildings, we've got a lot of history here. So. Thanks, Carolyn, for coming.
No, my pleasure.
And check out the Littleton Historical Society. It's the Houghton building, and it's yellow, not red.
Not red.
And for you old timers, it's the old library. That's the old library. But anyway, they're open from.
We're open Wednesday afternoons 1 to 4. The second Sunday from 2 to 4, and we'll be open July and August Thursday evenings 6 to 8.
Well, that's easy to remember.
Remember all that? Yeah.
All right, so we hope to see you there, and thanks again, Carolyn.
All right, thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today, and I hope you will join us on July 7th for the reruns of the 2014 and 2015 Senior Follies. The Angels are back. Enjoy an afternoon of laughter when watching the Follies on the high school big screen. This is a fundraiser for the new Shattuck Street Center, Senior Center. The time is 2 p.m. to 4:30 p.m., and the price is $10 per person. So we're looking forward to seeing you there.
Right. Well, enjoy that day and every day this summer season, and don't forget to hug a senior.
Hey, wait a minute. That's my line.
Oh, sorry, you say it.
And don't forget to hug a senior.
Oh, you say it so much better.